Hello, this is Ingrid Lee from Harvard College Broadcast News, and I'm here with Kelly O'Donnell, NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Great to be with you.
Okay, awesome. And first question. So I know that you began working as a reporter in the 1990s. Could you tell us about what it was like as a woman in the newsroom and how the dynamics have changed?
Things have definitely changed, and much of that change has been positive. There are more women in positions of authority. I've had great role models. There was a time, the generation or so before me, it was really unusual to see a woman doing the work that I'm doing. So I think it's gotten a lot easier. Having said that, there are still all the same challenges that exist in wider society and in other careers. There will be assumptions people make, whether it's the viewer or the people perhaps who employ you, who will at times funnel women into certain roles. For example, earlier in my career, I did a lot of the stories that would be considered women's stories. Now, in part, that's a valid choice because as a woman, I can understand some of the issues. I might have a perspective that would work well with the people I'd be interviewing, but at the same time, I didn't want to do only stories that were women-centric. So I've had the chance to do some of that and then also do stories right alongside my male counterparts, and would be stories that don't have gender as a part of it. So what has changed? Certainly more acceptance, more women in the business, more women in leadership positions. I now work for a woman who runs NBC News and also a woman who runs the entire network. It's the first time in my career where I've had women in bosses in leadership levels that high. So I think it's a sign of more opportunity.
Great. And also, we all know that you and many other talented women who are working in media, you guys have made the push to establish yourselves successfully in the newsroom. And also the good news is that the general culture of media has become more gender equal. But my question is, in your opinion, are there areas of journalism that still need to work in terms of improving gender equality?
I do think there are still issues, and a lot of it comes back to, as journalists, we're storytellers. And sometimes being the storyteller, it helps if you have some standing in a community. You still find women who are covering sports, not as many as men, by a long shot, but you're finding more women who cover sports. That's one area. I think that there are things like the crime beat. Often men will cover those stories. Why? In part because they might be more comfortable covering some of those stories and because they are viewed that way. It's all about getting opportunities. I think there are stories that women enjoy doing, there are stories that men enjoy doing, and there's a lot that we all would be eager to do. A big story is a big story. I think that when you're talking about children's issues, education, that is still typically driven by women. In terms of most often, I find, at least in my experience, that there are women reporters doing that. Not exclusively, but it's still dominant. But a lot of that really reflects people's interests, how viewers or readers respond, and sometimes the ability to get a story is when you can blend in a community or in a topic area where you have an ability to connect. And sometimes that appears to have a gender implication. Not necessarily intentional, but sometimes it plays out that way.
Great, thank you. And it's been a journey for you to reach the career that you have today.
Yes.
And yes, and while your job is obviously very demanding, at the same time it sounds very exciting. Like, you've been a correspondent for the past Summer and Winter Olympics. You've interviewed former President Bill Clinton, and you've done reports on the Florida recount. So that's all extremely exciting. So I'm just wondering, could you tell us one memorable story or interview that you've covered that has had a huge impact on you?
There are so many. I think if you're talking about something that is fun, pure fun, covering Olympics has been wonderful. Where you get to see that moment, that peak moment in someone's life. I've covered both Summer and Winter Olympics. That's exciting. There is a certain patriotism that's involved. There's also the heartbreak when people have worked very hard and don't make it. So in, I think, a fun environment, covering the Olympics has been great. I think that I have been deeply affected by covering things like the 9/11 attacks or the Oklahoma City bombing, or other natural disasters where you, in a moment, someone's life is forever changed. That has a profound impact. It's hard, it's often tragic, it is sad, that stays with you, but it also gives you perspective about what people go through and the resilience that many people are able to demonstrate that amazes us. We saw it in Boston with the Boston Marathon bombing and how the victims there have been able to be an amazing example of coming back and reclaiming your life. So I think what's great about journalism is it's everything from the fun of terrific sporting events or celebrity moments, you know, meeting people who have been in movies or in music, and in politics, which is my day job, covering politicians, getting to see them up close. And then it's also some of those take your breath away, life-changing moments where you gain perspective about a lot of things.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And just one more question, which is that for all the college students who are interested in pursuing a career in broadcast journalism, what sort of advice can you give us or give them?
The exciting thing about that is that advice doesn't really change. It's about being interested in news, being curious about news, reading and watching a lot of news, and then writing. It's fundamentally about writing. Can you tell a good story? Can you organize facts in a clean, simple way to be able to retell something to someone else? You have to understand it to retell it. And I think that's very basic and something that people can focus on. Another thing, internships. The best way to know if it's what you really want to do is to have a chance to work in a newsroom, to be given some of the entry-level tasks and see, does this fit for me? And I think that's the best way to do it, to have that practical experience.
Great. And was that your first step in
It absolutely was. And I knew being in a newsroom and interning for a summer, this is what I wanted to do. And it opened every other door after that.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you so much again.
So nice to be with you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the advice. Thanks for being here with us. And we look forward to seeing you here again on campus.